Ulthuan, home of the Aesir, known more commonly as the High Elves. One of the longest lived and most powerful races in the Warhammer world, they were once the masters of the mortal realm, with an empire that stretched across the known world, where no continent did not feel their influence. Now in their decline, their empire is confined to the kingdoms of Ulthuan and scattered outposts across the sea. Its kingdoms are separated into the outer kingdoms, those which face the great ocean, and the inner kingdoms, who in part or wholly face the inner sea. The first of these that we will discuss is Cothique, the coastal kingdom of northeast Ulthuan. A cold realm battered by chill winds, Cothique is defined by towering serrated cliffs, shell beaches, and treacherous seas. Past the green inland valleys lie the dense forests and rocky highlands that approach the Nuli Mountains. Tor Coriolis, the capital city, lies off its central coast, with the nearby shrine dedicated to the Seven Sisters. Unlovely to the eyes of most elves, in the other days before chaos, it was a sparsely populated land, only occupied by those who sought to escape the more civilized realms and return to nature. Unlike Ulthuan's other kingdoms, its greatest beauties are hidden beneath the surface, where many of Cothique's palaces and cities were built into the caverns that honeycombed through its coastal cliffs and inland valleys. Initially, these caves and hollows were occupied for the shelter they provided from the stormy climate, but soon they became safe havens during times of invasion. What began out of need soon became a way of life for its nobility and many of its other citizens. Where similar dwellings might require the use of fire for light, Cothique's underground chambers and halls are lit by a magical glow from the rock itself, enchanted long ago by the greatest mages of this realm. While other underground domains throughout the world, such as the Dwarf Carracks and Underway, are under constant threat from the Skaven and the Greenskins, Ulthuan itself protects Cothique from these dangers. For the continent is held magically upon the waves, no foundation of bedrock for the vermin to exploit. The Sundering, the cataclysmic event that collapsed large portions of the coasts of Ulthuan, had a profound effect on this kingdom. Monsters, stirred from the darkest ocean depths by the sinking of the land, now abound in its surrounding seas. Many of the finest underground halls were lost with the tidal floods and earthquakes that smashed apart the coasts. When most of the water receded, many of these once glorious halls were now polluted with the stench of death and the bodies of rotten corpses. But the High Elves are ever champions of tradition, and so the remaining subterranean palaces that were untainted became the greatest cities of Cothique and the palaces of its princes. Elves of lesser stature, or those without means to stay near the coasts, moved to occupy the inner territories of the mountainous highlands. Inhabited by hardy sea folk, the Elves of Cothique are the finest sailors in the world. The current Phoenix King, Finubar the Seafarer, a renowned explorer even after his coronation, recruited only mariners of Cothique in his later voyages, as no others can match the skill and knowledge found within this realm. To survive in their domain, the development of such skill is a necessity, as kraken, megalodons, and even black leviathans are all commonly seen in this kingdom's seas. Among the rocky cliffs and gray beaches lie many small harbors, hidden for all intents, except to those who can pilot the volatile waters and thwart the monsters that dwell below. Their enchanted vessels, called skyships, act as scouts for the kingdom. When dark elf corsairs or Norscan raiders are spotted, warnings are quickly sent to the shore by messengers mounted upon the giant flying fish common to Cothique's seas and seen on its banner. Explorers and mariners at heart, they are characterized by a wanderlust, as many of these elves spend their entire lives at sea, as no happier place exists to enough of Cothique than the deck of a ship, with the smell of salty sea air everywhere and the cold breeze in his hair. The few who remain live off the bounty of the sea fishing, or hunting within the even more thinly populated highlands of the mountains. The sleek watercraft used here to seek food and trade cut gracefully through the stormy waters, and double as warships when war comes to Cothique. Sling and bow are used to hunt game by those in the mountains, with tribute given to any noble whose land is used as hunting ground. It is these elves who make up the garrisons of citizen levies of the scattered fortresses built by Calidor the Conqueror to defend against the Dark Elves, placed throughout to protect any smaller passage into the inner kingdoms. Ranks of Cothique spearmen and archers, joined with those of Crace, lifted the Druki siege of the fortress of the Griffin Gate during the reign of Phoenix King Morvale. Among the elven pantheon, Mathlan, the storm god, is most highly venerated in this province. Distrusted or seen as a fickle god by most of the High Elven populace, the Elves of Cothique gladly embrace the King of Storm and Sea, their warriors seen as wild and cold reflections of their patron. Many Cothique heroes bear shields painted with his monstrous children upon them, for the sailors of Cothique actually seek out these monsters in great sea hunts, seeking to match their skill and speed against their brute strength and ferocity. While elves of other kingdoms may consider them superstitious because of this worship, it is just to be so. For any who spend so much of their lives at sea are wise to remain in good standing with Ulthuan, where he is just as likely to curse as give his blessing. Many times have the scions of Ulthuan, one of Cothique's renowned regiments, been aided as a giant sea creature has risen to destroy the ships of their enemies. Great praise must be given to the Lord of the Deeps, for those who do not recognize his favor may be just as quickly punished. The Cothique are the most practical of the Aesir, with relatively little concern for the overly fancy courts that many of the other kingdoms tend to favor. Their traditions and rituals are a reflection of their harsh environment. Nowhere else is this more evident than funeral processions in Cothique. While other elves have great ceremonies or elaborate mausoleums to honor their dead, the bodies of fallen here are cast into the sea. Seen as empty vessels whose flesh would taint the remaining subterranean halls, these cadavers instead serve to maintain the ravenous hunger for fresh meat and the terrible creatures that inhabit Cothique's seas, and perhaps to obtain the blessing of Ulthuan. The brunt of Norscan raids from beyond the Old World, and many dark elf fleets fall upon Cothique, and so its people have become fierce by centuries of war with these savage warriors. Considered wild by the standards of other elven warriors, Cothique soldiers prefer the thrill of raiding over traditional battles, and are sometimes seen as pirates in foreign lands. Their shields and armor bear the blues and greens of the sea, and their helmets forged to resemble fierce sea creatures. Uniquely, the Knights of Cothique do battle upon their steeds while on the rolling deck in ship-to-ship combat. The peerless training of both warrior and beast made evident. Their battle prowess upon ship no match for even the land-bound high elf nobles of the great horse kingdom of Valyrian. The twins Tyrion and Teclis, defenders of Ulthuan, and heirs of the first and greatest Phoenix king, Anarion the Defender, hail from here. And when a Norscan army led by Eric Redax raided Cothique, they were smashed in a huge sea battle by a high elf fleet led by Tyrion. So while Cothique may be one of the lesser-known kingdoms of Ulthuan, let not its outward appearance deceive you into thinking it unimportant or weak. For among the Aesir, who more than not only look inwards towards Ulthuan, the Elves of Cothique almost uniquely still look outward to the now foreign world. Whether in search of trade, friendship, or sometimes battle, the world is full of opportunities to this people who hear the call of the sea. Thank you for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. I intend to continue this series and do a video on each of the kingdoms, and just the High Elves in general, because they're my favorite.